Folks, if you're closing on your pre-construction condo purchase, there are no good options. I'll explain what I mean and then get into the latest home prices and insights for condos across the GTA for week ending October 15th, 2025. If you want to speak directly with me about your real estate situation, selling, buying, it's really simple. Below this video in the description, there's a link to my calendar. Click on that, book a time that's convenient for you, and we'll talk about whatever's on your mind. I'm working with a condo buyer, and he's very specific in what he wants. He wants a newer building, preferably brand new, but 1 to 3 years old. And there's lots to choose from. And he wants to be in a specific area. And again, there's lots of choices out there for him. Now, what I could see is a condo that's brand new. I know the homeowner, the seller just closed on that. I could see what they're listed at. I know what they purchased at. And I know that when that building came up or that unit came up ready for him or her to close, what they purchased it for years ago, this much. And what the bank appraises it at is this much. They may be purchased for $1 million. The bank says, it's only worth $700 or $800. So we'll give you a mortgage based on that. So these people that are selling, they're selling at a huge loss because they're not selling at what they bought it for. They're selling at the new value, which is much less than what they bought it at. So think about that for a second and put yourself in that situation that you've got to come up with $1 million for something that is really only worth $700,000 now. That's a monumental feat for most people to actually be able to close on that. And you are willingly closing, coming up with money, agreeing to get into debt for something where the value just isn't there. We wouldn't do that for any other type of purchase, but for this condo, that's what these people did. I could see what they're listed at. I know they're going to lose a ton of money. So these people looked at their options and said, I'm going to come up with the money somehow. I'm going to close and I'm going to put it for sale. And I'm going to lose whatever down payment and more in many cases that I put into this. Other people I could see in these buildings put their units up for rent. I know what they're asking for when it comes to the rent. I have a pretty good idea what their expenses are. They're going to lose money. They're going to lose every single month. They're going to be cash flow negative, overall thousands of dollars. So the second group, not only did they go through everything the first group did, but the first group has decided to just sell it, take the loss, and move on. The second group took the loss in getting the mortgage and getting the financing, but now they're going to take a loss every single month. It will add up to thousands of dollars. And this is almost like instant, boom, fast. This is the rental side, death by 1,000 cuts, basically. These are the options that are so clearly visible that people who bought pre-constructions years ago that are closing now, we see the options that they're taking. There's a third option that some people are taking that we don't see. They went through the thought process, do I get a mortgage on something that the value will take years if ever it gets back there? Do I rent it knowing the value isn't there and I'm putting in money out of my, extra cash that I have, putting money every single month to maintain this bad debt? Or do I simply not close? That's a third option. Do I just not close, builder keeps my deposit and potentially comes back and sues me for more. Which of these three options should I take? That's what a lot of people who bought pre-construction are going through right now. I can see this when I'm working with my buyers and we're looking at these newer buildings. I can see the numbers. I can see what people are going through. I could count the ones that closed and are for sale, the ones that closed and are for rent right now. I don't have a solid handle on the ones that have simply chosen not to close. Now, some have chosen not to close because they just said, there's no way I'm going to pull out a mortgage for that. And others didn't even have the facility, not even able to get a mortgage. They're just simply not closing out of no other choice. Even if they wanted to, they can't because of the difference in purchase price versus appraised value. These are the choices. None of them are good. This is what's happening in the condo industry. One of the many problems, or three situations, plaguing the condo industry today. If you think this video can help somebody you know, please pass it along. And if you get value from what we're talking about, subscribe. Now, let's get into the numbers. Here we go, folks. Condo, lots of data to review. We're talking only about condo apartments, not condo townhouses. And we're going to be dissecting the data for the City of Toronto, condos in York Region and in Peel Region. And just real simple, York Region and Peel Region, they're pretty close in average sold prices. City of Toronto's, it's about $140,000 more in average sold price. We're going to start off with the City of Toronto. For week ending October 15th, 150 condo apartments were sold. 15 of those sold at $1 million or more. Now, 150, it's a decline in where sales have been. If we look at the fall market, sales have been trending upwards. For week ending October 15th, sales dropped. At some point over the fall season, every season we see this, sales usually go up, 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 and at some point they turn and start going the other way towards the end of the year. Is that happening now? Is this the start? Well, we'll have to wait and see. Is it just because of the Thanksgiving long weekend? We'll have to see that also. However, average sold price sitting at $702,000. That climbed quite a bit from the previous week. $702,000 is 4% higher than the same week a year ago. The median price of $639,000 is also 4% higher. The dotted line, that's a 4-week moving average. I've got 3 months on the board here. The median price, when we look at the 4-week moving average, it's kind of flat. The average sold price looks like it's slightly trending upwards. Looking at the sales, we said 150 were sold. Well, there's a few things here I want to talk about. The percentage selling at list price or more, it's pretty low at only 16%. But let's look at year to date. We're often hearing all sorts of conversations about how slow the market is. I'm not even talking about prices, just slow. There's so many for sales, buyers aren't buying. It's slow. Activity volume is so much lower. Well, year to date, if we look at condo apartments, last year between January 1st to October 15th, over 10,000 were sold. This year, just over 8,700. The difference is 1,392 fewer condo sales this year. That's a 14% drop in sales this year versus the same period a year ago. And a year ago, we didn't do so hot either compared to the previous year. So 14% is a significant drop. In comparison to the detached market, it's only experiencing a 3.2% drop in volume of sales. So 3.2 for the detached market, 14% fewer sales for condo apartments, and that's just for the city of Toronto. Listings, we're seeing fewer listings. And when we look at active listings, which is coming down slightly, basically, when we compare the sales to how many condo apartments are for sale, which is almost 5,600, 2.7% of all available condos actually sold. That's low. It's a low percentage. Only 2.7% sold. Months of inventory has climbed up. It's basically the highest that we've seen over the September period, September and October. We're now sitting at 8.6 months of inventory. Here's the city broken down into 9 different sections. And what I want to point out today, if we're saying that out of the sales, 150 represents 2.7% of all available apartments for sale, well, that's for the whole city averaged out. Let's look at some of the individual areas. The lowest performing area is Scarborough, actually, where only 1.5% of available condo apartments actually sold. So there's lots of there sitting without sales. And the most, I guess, active area as far as percentage of available sales is High Park, Parkdale, where 6% sold. And then there's lots of areas in between, hovering around the city's average. Uptown, 2.3%, Midtown, 2.6%, downtown, 2.4%. But the worst, Scarborough, 1.5%, and the best, highest area, High Park, Parkdale, 6% actually sold. Etobicoke, sitting at 3% sold. Let's look at condo apartments for the city of Toronto, 1 bedroom versus 2 bedroom. Let me also say that, excuse me, the 1 bedroom includes 1 bedroom plus den, and the 2 bedrooms includes 2 bedrooms plus the den. So for 1 bedroom apartments, sales dropped quite a bit. 55 were sold. Compared to last week, it was 84. So big drop in sales. Average sold price climbed from the previous week. It's now sitting at $556,000. It's tough to see which way prices are going. Like if we go back over the course of since the beginning of the year, sure, we can see that average sold price is lower, but it's not by a lot. We're up here we're hovering around 580. There was 1 week of 600, but 580 is about the average the first part of the year. 556 is not that far off. Compared to last year, 556 is 5% lower. Here's a 2 bedroom. Sales of 2 bedrooms climbing. 84 2 bedroom apartments were sold. Average sold price does seem like it's coming down, but now sitting at $802,000. 802 is $1 lower than what it was the same time a year ago. So it averages out to a 0% change. When we compare the two, also big differences. The 1 bedroom, 9.9 months of inventory. The 2 bedroom is 7.1 months of inventory. And I say it that way because that's really interesting. Normally, when I compare one property size to another, the one that's more expensive usually has a higher months of inventory. Not for condos. 9.9 versus 7.1, which shows you that more people are opting to buy the larger 2 bedroom condo than the smaller 1 bedroom condo. The difference in average sold price is $246,000. When we look at condo prices split up by square footage, usually this range, which is the same this week as it is the previous weeks, 600 to 699, somewhere in here is where we're seeing the most amount of sales. But The other areas are pretty close. So 6 to 699 square feet, we saw 26 sales. 23 sales, 8 to 899. 20 sales, 1,000 to 1,200 square feet. So the larger sales are really spread out by the different square footage types. When we look at 5 to 599, there's one category here where the average cost per square foot just hits over 1,000 per square foot. It's 1,021. It's been a while since we've seen that. It's been a long while since one area here showed an average of 1,000 per square feet or more. It's very rare. Here's York Region condos. Sales trending down for week ending October 15th. 24 were sold. Average sold price definitely trending down. We're at the lowest we've seen all year at 574,000. 574 is 10% lower than the same week a year ago. The median price of 568 is 8% lower. Prices are dropping in York Region for condos. When we look at sales, the 24, 13% of those sold at list price or more. Let's look at year-to-date counts for York Region condos. There are 266 fewer condos sold this year so far than last year. 266 may or may not seem like that much to you. However, that represents a 14% drop in sales so far, January 1st to October 15th. 14% fewer sales in any industry, I would say that's a significant percentage change. Listings, we're seeing fewer listings. And of all the available condo apartments for sale, which is 1,074 in York Region, 2.2% of those actually sold. It's not a lot. And months of inventory climbed. We're now at 10.3 months of inventory. I've got 3 months on the board here. 10.3 is the second highest we've seen in 3 months. Here's Peel Region condos. Also, sales trending down. 20 condo apartments were sold in Peel Region. Average sold price did climb up to $555,000. 555 is 5% lower than the same week a year ago. The median price of 541 it's slightly lower, but it rounds off to a 0% change. The dotted lines, the 4-week moving average, kind of indicate that average price and median prices over the span of 3 months may be trending up slightly. When we look at sales, let's look at year to date. We're seeing 18% fewer sales this year than the same period a year ago. Earlier, for York Region, 14%. Well, 18%, that's even more significant. And active listings, 1.9% of all listings available for sale, these are condo listings in Peel Region, actually sold. Months of inventory, way up there at 11.9 months of inventory. Average days on the market is 51. Here's a quick summary of months of inventory. If we want to compare to last year, City of Toronto was 8.2. Now it's 8.6. So not a big difference there. York Region 7.3, now 10.3. Peel Region was 6.6. It's now 11.9. So big changes in a year. And then, of course, we have our 1 bedroom at 9.9 and our 2 bedrooms at 7.1. Pretty much, no matter how you slice it and dice it, it's pretty much a buyer's market out there. Lots of choices when it comes to condo apartments. Thanks for watching. Have an awesome day.